Hello, everybody. We are about to start the second panel today. I would like to start thanking the Progress Project for this wonderful opportunity for knowledge sharing among us and mutual learning. And also, of course, thanking everybody present on site or online. My name is Annabel Sanchez. I'm the Impact Officer at GREAF. And this new post in the center is very much in line with many of the objectives of the Progress Project, because we aim to foster evidence-based knowledge into policies, practices, and management scheme, strategy, planning, everything, so that scientific knowledge is really on the base of the decision that policymakers and practitioners make. So for me, it's a wonderful opportunity to be here and listen to all these wonderful good practices. Thank you, Janice, also for this initial moderation of panel 1. And to your ideas, I would only add that I really ask panelists to be careful with the time so we don't pile up to amount of delay that we wouldn't like to have. And I will introduce our 3 panelists of this arrangements panel. We will have Massimo Rovai from the Università di Pisa, talking about rural-urban governance arrangements and planning instruments, community for food and agro-biodiversity. Then we will have Pere Salai-Martí, Director of the Catalan Landscape Observatory, talking about landscape charters in Catalonia. And to end this panel, we would have the intervention of Annelies Broekman, a researcher at GREAF from the Global Change and Water Research Group. And she will share with us her experience on innovation in governance, so for adaptation, and examples from Catalonia. So Massimo, if you're here, you can start with your presentation. Thank you very much.
Sì, buonasera a tutti. Vado a condividere lo schermo. Un attimo. Allora. Sì, allora, il mio intervento è un intervento che sposta un po' il focus rispetto, diciamo, anche alla prima sessione, perché in qualche modo vorrei porre l'attenzione sul legame che esiste tra la produzione di servizi ecosistemici e la necessità comunque di trovare anche dei modelli di governance da parte dell'agricoltura e la necessità di trovare anche dei modelli di governance per consumare questi prodotti che sono appunto prodotti dall'attività agricola. E sostanzialmente il focus si inserisce su 3 domande fondamentali. Il ruolo che possono avere le politiche locali del cibo per rafforzare le sinergie tra l'agricoltura e la produzione di servizi ecosistemici da parte dell'agricoltura. Il secondo tema è quali modelli di governance dobbiamo incrementare per rinforzare queste strategie, e soprattutto l'ultimo appunto riguarda quali sono i colli di bottiglia, quindi quali sono i vincoli che ci sono rispetto al raggiungimento di questi risultati. Il punto di partenza, che è stato illustrato credo in un seminario precedente dal dottor Besnik, era appunto, si è concentrato sulla presentazione della comunità del cibo della Garfagnana, che credo alcuni di voi avranno il modo di visitare domani direttamente. Quindi diciamo sposto un po' l'attenzione perché domani avrete tutte le informazioni, tutte diciamo le conoscenze vedendole diciamo direttamente. Però ecco, mi preme ricordare che siamo in un contesto montano dove l'agricoltura ha subito una forte pressione verso l'abbandono e dove però permangono ancora degli elementi interessanti di varietà locali, di razze locali, che rappresentano un importante elemento, no, di identità territoriale, di identità culturale, ma anche diciamo, di salvaguardia di alcuni agroecosistemi e paesaggi tipici del territorio. E da qui quindi è nata questa idea, no, di cercare di rivalorizzare queste produzioni che erano in via di abbandono, consapevoli del fatto però che queste produzioni hanno dei costi di produzione, quindi dei prezzi di mercato superiori rispetto alle produzioni standard e pertanto c'è bisogno in questo caso di costruire delle alleanze a livello locale con gli operatori del settore, quindi ristoratori, piuttosto che negozi, ma anche consumatori, per cercare di appunto creare un mercato sul territorio. Da qui l'idea di costituire questa comunità del cibo, che è una forma prevista da una legge nazionale sulla salvaguardia del germoplasma, ma vedremo che, e quindi diciamo questo è stato il nostro punto di partenza. Perché è importante questo aspetto? Perché questo è già stato visto, perché comunque l'agricoltura ha un ruolo fondamentale, scusate, nel produrre servizi ecosistemici. È stato accennato anche nel primo video che è stato presentato, però al tempo stesso, diciamo, anche a seconda del tipo di agricoltura che noi facciamo, possiamo creare dei disservizi, possiamo creare delle esternalità. E qui siamo di fronte, diciamo, a una problematica, no, che è molto più ampia rispetto a questi aspetti, cioè il ruolo che hanno gli agroecosistemi nel produrre servizi ecosistemici. Noi sappiamo no, che l'agricoltura è un'attività multifunzionale, però il modo con cui organizziamo l'agricoltura non è indifferente rispetto alla produzione di servizi ecosistemici. Come possiamo vedere in questa rappresentazione, il processo, no, di modernizzazione dell'agricoltura ha portato fondamentalmente a creare degli agroecosistemi nei quali l'unica funzione, diciamo, l'unico servizio ecosistemico che è prodotto in maniera rilevante e molto efficiente è la produzione di cibo, ma molto spesso in questi sistemi intensivi si perdono tutti gli altri servizi ecosistemici che sono importanti per il mantenimento del capitale naturale, ma anche per il benessere della collettività. E allora quindi l'idea è quella appunto di andare verso una ricomplessificazione di questi servizi ecosistemi, di questi agroecosistemi, per garantire appunto un equilibrato rapporto tra tutti i servizi che un agroecosistema è in grado di svolgere. E da questo punto di vista appunto gli agroecosistemi come quello della Garfagnana sono proprio degli agroecosistemi che vanno in questa direzione. E tra l'altro c'è da dire che il modo con cui si strutturano gli agroecosistemi è diciamo in qualche maniera legato anche al modo con cui poi si organizza il sistema agroalimentare. È chiaro che laddove il sistema agroalimentare decide di intensivizzare, abbiamo un allontanamento progressivo tra consumatore e produttore, quindi abbiamo dei sistemi produttivi che di fatto, oltre a ridurre i servizi ecosistemici, hanno degli effetti, no, ambientali e socio-economici molto negativi in diverse parti del territorio. Quindi l'idea è quella di cercare di costruire insieme a degli agroecosistemi che forniscono più servizi anche dei sistemi locali del cibo che consentono appunto di riconnettere consumatore e produttore. È chiaro che questo deve essere visto cercando di organizzare questi sistemi in modo tale da assicurare, no, la sicurezza del cibo, ma anche di ricostruire le comunità locali e l'identità di queste comunità intorno al cibo. Tutta questa tematica quindi di cercare di legare consumo locale, prodotto locale con degli agroecosistemi più complessi viene fuori attraverso quella che è l'azione che le local food policy stanno portando avanti. Le local food policy sono, diciamo, delle politiche, no, che cercano che sono costruite dal basso e che cercano di integrare più obiettivi, tra cui quella della sostenibilità ambientale, della salute pubblica, della qualità della vita, della giustizia sociale e dello sviluppo economico. Ecco, da questo punto di vista, quindi, la comunità del cibo si inserisce in un panorama dove oggi, almeno in Toscana, abbiamo tutta una serie di iniziative che cercano appunto di riconnettere questi aspetti, quindi cercano in qualche maniera di rafforzare degli agroecosistemi complessi che sono in grado di fornire più servizi, ma anche di promuovere il consumo locale. Quindi oltre alle comunità del cibo abbiamo i distretti biologici, abbiamo delle politiche locali del cibo, come ad esempio quella che è stata fatta sulla provincia di Lucca come il piano del cibo, ma abbiamo anche delle comunità che si riuniscono intorno a dei prodotti particolari che sono portati avanti dall'organizzazione Slow Food. Allora, quindi qual è il panorama che abbiamo di fronte? Il panorama che abbiamo di fronte è che rispetto, diciamo, alla necessità di favorire dei servizi, cioè un'agricoltura, degli agroecosistemi complessi che consentono di produrre più servizi, dall'altro lato però bisogna anche favorire poi la domanda di questi servizi e quindi che deve rafforzarsi soprattutto a livello locale. Quindi quali sono sostanzialmente le problematiche che abbiamo di fronte quando affrontiamo dei processi appunto di questo tipo? Sicuramente, diciamo, questi sono gli step, no, che normalmente devono essere seguiti quando creiamo una comunità del cibo, un distretto biologico o quanto altro, quindi c'è una prima fase di discussione, di spazio di discussione, dove gli attori si raccolgono e quindi cominciano a discutere sulle problematiche che devono perseguire. C'è poi un secondo step di una condivisione di valori e quindi stabilire, insomma, quelli che sono gli interessi e i valori intorno ai quali, no, costruire una strategia. C'è poi il problema di allargare l'alleanza ed infine mettere a punto la strategia. Ora, da questo punto di vista, diciamo che mentre sul primo punto e sul secondo punto le cose vanno sempre abbastanza bene, perché comunque si riesce a coalizzare una serie di attori che sono predisposti a costituire una comunità o comunque un gruppo che vuole rafforzare il legame tra consumo e produzione di servizi ecosistemici. Dall'altro lato i problemi nascono, diciamo, negli step 3 e 4, quando si deve capire come allargare, no, questa comunità che spesso rimane a un livello di nicchia, non riesce quindi a prendere forza e quindi non riesce a far aumentare anche la produzione, no, degli altri servizi ecosistemici di cui parlavamo, e dall'altro lato l'adozione della strategia, perché da questo punto di vista molto spesso queste comunità si fondano, no, sul lavoro volontario e che spesso in una prima fase iniziale magari è molto, diciamo, c'è molta volontà nel fare queste attività, però poi a lungo andare è chiaro, se questa comunità non riesce a dare anche un senso economico a questa diciamo, strategia rischia poi di collassare. Così come l'altro grosso tema è come cercare di sostenere queste iniziative, perché spesso queste iniziative, almeno nella fase iniziale, hanno bisogno di risorse finanziarie, di capacità progettuale e di capacità anche di cercare fondi, e da questo punto di vista, ecco, sicuramente diciamo, è importante ed è necessario che anche a livello, diciamo, delle istituzioni pubbliche ci sia un maggiore impegno rispetto a questo punto, perché sicuramente, come dicevamo all'inizio, o meglio, non è stato detto, però dobbiamo partire dal presupposto che le aree rurali sono le aree principali dove si producono dei servizi ecosistemici importanti, e quindi c'è questa necessità di fare questa transizione verso dei modelli, no, di produzione agricola più sostenibile, ma questo implica appunto che siano incentivate anche queste forme dal basso che riconnettono produzione e consumo locale. Io avrei finito e vi ringrazio per l'attenzione.
Thank you very much, Massimo. Thank you for your presentation, which I think tackles a couple of elements that I believe are very, very crucial when we want to really bring to life transformative changes. One of them is acknowledging the complexity of systems. So things are not linear, they're not simple. So we do have to acknowledge all these elements that are complex. And the other very important element for me in your presentation is the local level. So how important is to really implement these changes at local levels for them to be meaningful. And in your case, this understanding of how we can preserve food safety and production of food, but also the local communities and local cultures to preserve identity, and how to preserve also the natural environment by incorporating these ways of producing food, so these agro-ecosystems that you were talking about, to avoid the negative effects that very many often have intense agriculture has, while bringing this wide variety of ecosystem services that the example you shared can bring. So thanks a lot, Massimo. And I will give now the floor to Pera. I think you're also online, if I'm not mistaken, so please, you can proceed with your presentation. Thanks a lot. He's not in Zoom, so do we have to assume he won't present? So we can have more time for discussion later on. Let's take it in the positive side. So I give the floor to Annelies Broekman. And yeah, maybe you can relax a bit when you present, you can have a little bit more time.
Or maybe we can hope that he can connect later on.
Let's
so
hope
give a
that
sign
too.
if he is actually able to connect in a second moment, because then I wrap up and give the floor back again. Thank you, Annabelle. I take off the mask. So how do I change the slides for this one? Yeah. So I'm Annelies Broekman, as you already know, from CREAF, and happy to be here with you. And I'd like to talk about innovation in governance in Catalonia in the framework of adaptation to global change. But I'm not changing the slides. No? Yes. Can I have the next one then? It goes delante detrás, no? Can I use these ones maybe? there we are. Thank you so much. No? I'm sorry, I have a technical problem. Are you able to change the slides from behind? If I just like lift my hand? Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I was too much in a hurry. Okay, just to add on the framework we've been seeing here in the Progress project, where you're speaking about ecosystem services for landscape management, I would like to contextualize a little bit more about the environment I work in, which is actually, as I said, global change. Global change, we want to understand, we want to add on a layer to what I've been hearing until now. You're really focusing on all the complexity of a landscape, the here and now. This is a situation, these are management scenarios. And I add on a layer which is a stressor of climate change. So global change, we want to speak about demography, population movements, land use, and climate change on top of it. So that's a focus. And the other focus is adaptation to all the challenges and changes that are already present in a territory, as always, plus the changes induced from climate change. So I would like to just give a few words. As I'm used to work in multidisciplinary environments, I know that you shouldn't take for granted that everybody has the same references as you have. Sometimes we just go for it. So that's why I put these slides just to contextualize the words I'll be using and a bit of the background. So, of course, everybody knows the adaptation to climate change. So this is a framework of a diagnosis also. Its first step is to have a diagnosis, to identify the risks and vulnerabilities. So I saw you also do this with the tools presented before, which were really, really cool tools on sensitivity, for example, key component of risk. To design solutions and minimize the impacts, which we can expect. And of course, in a participatory framework. And this can be from the first step, from the beginning. It's an attitude we have from the beginning. And I see we completely shared it. Then, of course, we are speaking also in a context of implementation with local governments and regions. So then we make a step to adaptive management. So to induce experience-based learning as evidence-based policies, as Annabelle was introducing, with a key aspect of evaluating all the time what we've been doing, learning by the process of implementing, and then introducing this back again into management processes, and managing uncertainty, which is a key aspect that gets with climate change harder every time. And again, engaging all the key actors into this cycle of planning that would be from a linear way, which we're used to have planning, into a circular dimension of learning and planning again, co-designing again, learning again, monitoring, and feedback into the loop. Then governance for adaptation, where does this fit in? It fits into the institutional frameworks needed to implement all this. So how these institutions need to be able to get this feedback back into again, how you can introduce all these aspects in a decision-making protocol, how you can face this cross-cutting needs to interact, because things go out of your strict boundaries of decision-making. So how to coordinate and get out of your comfort zone. And the key of this is the creation of spaces for governance, as we call it. So this would be spaces where the conditions are created to introduce the concept of adaptation and adaptive management into actually policy making and real life situations. It's a bit the framework I'm working in. So as I said, it was a loop. And participatory interaction is key. Where do we do that? In the identification and setting of objective, co-design of solutions, analysis and evaluation, as well as bringing back the feedback in. So in all these stages, we got key points where decision-making or institutional take-up or participation is key. And I just want to introduce also a key aspect in the framework, conceptual framework I'm working in, which is ecosystem-based management. It means that actually we're dealing with wicked problems. So they're persistent, no clear end, and the choices have winners and losers. So there is a morale, there is a politic, and an important human part in it. So we're speaking about the diversity and the complexity of real life, which has, as Annabelle introduced, no linear behavior. It is some kind of, the complexity of social ecological system don't follow clear patterns. You can find patterns, but you have to take into account the specificities and the wickedness of each side. And so in this sense, I also like to speak about that the ecosystem services in this case, we are focusing on ecosystem functionalities. So this trying to overcome a bit the separation between the vision of that economical development would be in a contradiction with environmental protection. It is key to see the whole thing as a part of one system. So without environments functioning, we can't count on the stability we need for the economical development. So this is a bit the complexity to have the functionality of a joint social and ecological system thinking. An example how this is needed. So we really need an innovation in this government, because you can say, oh, this is a nice theory, Annelies, but actually I have my protocols, I have 5 minutes to take a decision, and please don't complicate my life too much. And I see the very practical implementations of this, apart from pursuing sound decision-making, also very things related to the measures we're implementing. Like usually, especially in Spain, we're champions of waterworks and gray infrastructure. And well, it's quite straightforward how to govern a water channel. Here I speak about coastal environments. It's clearly identified. You have an engineering company. You have a very clear design of the project. So responsibilities are clearly identified, and the evaluation of the impacts are linked to very technical protocols, which are established already like the whole last century. Now we're speaking about nature-based solutions. Identified responsibilities are fuzzy. They are identified, but multiple actors are involved with all their stakes, interests, and roles into developing and maintaining the nature-based infrastructure. And the impact evaluation, this is completely innovative too. We are dealing with big uncertainties. It depends really on if you're able to restore the actual functionality of an ecosystem, which is a very complex thing to do. So it's a new engineering, it's not so consolidated. So really you need a governance model for this kind of measures, which are territorial interventions, to deal with this, to manage it. So you need coordination between these multiple actors, active participation of them, and a clear, sound monitoring in order to create this loop of decision-making. Until here, the conceptual ideas. Let's go down to Catalonia's cases, and I hope in the discussion we can just find out further links and complementarities and synergies with the other speeches I've been hearing. So we're focusing on participatory diagnosing and developing of key proposals for territorial development. And we've been assuming water as a backbone. Actually, water connects everybody and everything. Without water, there's no ecosystem, no economy, anything. So we took this water basin approach at first, water basin, but then also, let's say, more focused in sub-areas of a basin. I present here experiences from 3 projects, which is Be Water project was on a basin in the Tordera River Basin. And as I will later see, explain, there were some other projects following up from that for the specific area of the Delta. And maybe, yes, I can switch directly to this one. So one of the things I would like to remark is innovating governance needs time, a lot of effort, and a lot of attention to establishing relationships with people in this process. So what came out from the Be Water project, which was basin-wide from 4 basins in the whole Mediterranean, La Tordera was only one of them. You can see here an image of our adaptation plans. We were very happy to present. They had 33 measures included, answering to a set of challenges on all kind of different subjects. And a bunch of people, you can see there below, they were the ones who picked up one of those measures, which was creating an integrated strategy for the Delta area. And one of the arguments was, if we work on the Delta, we have a trigger up instead of tickling down effect, a trigger up effect in the rest of the basin, because the Delta receives all the pressures and impacts from the rest of the basin. So we want to make an integrated plan that would trigger the rest of the basin to participate. And it was a nice process, and it developed strategic action lines, concrete measures. And it was after that replicated also thanks to the Redapta project, the wonderful team, people in the Serpis River, which is in Valencia. You can see very similar environment. And we had the opportunity to replicate and therefore increase this mutual learning, because every time you apply a methodology, you get like innovative effect on your own approach and methodology, apart from learning from the field, no? So key aspects I would like to highlight without entering really in detail of all these projects. I think one of the key aspects of all this are the people. So the people are really in the center of all this, and it's really the most important aspect to take care about. And as you can see below, we created these spaces for governance in the Tordera and in the Serpis River. We've been enhancing, not only creating, people created and the territory created, but we gave technical support and tools actually to get hands-on in these 2 spaces of governance, La Tavola della Tordera and Plataforma del Serpis, which are multi-actor platforms actually, with this cross-sectoral perspective. So water backbone, but really trying to engage all these different perspectives. And engaging in co-production and co-design of solutions, ideas, concrete actions. As Annabelle also said, the local dimension is key. So we have a lot of recipes like adaptation measures, cases, examples from all over the world, but this presence of the other people really allow to trigger this down to this place here and now. And this can be quite challenging to deal with this multi environment. So it's multi-topic, many people, many challenges, many suggestions, much information. We are really also translating science into all these dimensions. So, wow, it's a bit much. So one of the lessons learned is you really have to stick down to your objectives. Try to be as clear as possible and to really structure the process in stages and little boxes and little aspects that you can really work with in order to have some results, because governance spaces many times are considered like, this is very fuzzy, qualitative, and they just are debating a lot. And then what did they do with this? Institutions don't know how to deal with this. So we try to legitimate the process, also engaging in administrations right from the start. So it's not about creating new institutions and to make the whole board more complex, but to engage people right from the start so that the process is legitimized by the performance, clear structure and results, legitimized by the multi-actor platform. And of course, legitimized by transparency and communication. From the moment that you lose that line, then things get a bit messy. We produced some handbooks and guidelines on the processes we did, including lessons learned that you can easily find online. Just to conclude, what we're doing now is the same, it's not the same approach, but very different process. We're in a working table on climate change adaptation in the Maresme County. So council, sorry, it's 17 municipalities. And this time it's really coastal. So also with the Tordera, we were focusing on a delta area, but now we're really focusing on the whole littoral, the whole coastal area, which is extremely vulnerable to climate change. It's already experiencing problems. I don't enter really in the details of the problems we're facing, but on the governance table we're making and how to build up this process. So it starts from a strategy which is already developed. It's a study on vulnerabilities and with a whole set of proposals. We started with 62 management options, actions, each of them. So a really big document, which we are actually opening and fragmenting in workable pieces. And trying to, we're here in the stage 1, we're trying to really integrate all the available knowledge, because often also from working, often we try to copy paste things and like have a nice title, but then how do you implement this? So we're now engaging a scientific committee of 33 scientists that are helping us to identify examples, transference, but also risks and opportunities, like real risks that we can document, things we have to take into account, and expected impacts, like to frame these impacts, how could we monitor, and we're going to set a base so that the whole implementation stage of the plan can have this scientific collaboration. Voilà, it's a voluntary work. And I was surprised to see how much interest there was and feeling that scientists really want their work to see it applied. And you can see the participation. Anyway, I just leave it here and my time is over. Just, I want to say local governments really have a big challenge on their back. They have very little means, and I don't enter the details you can see here and you perfectly recognize, I guess. But they have the huge task because they're the front line. They're really the front line, both of the, let's say, the sensitivity of the people and the sensitivity of the environment and the response. So I think it's so important to work on the governance level at local level and to inject all this help from science and from all knowledge available, and including the feedback into our science in order to make results operative. And anyway, we have no choice. This is a photo of Maresme. Sea is eating the railway, so we have to find a solution. No option for that, even if it's difficult. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annelies. I'd like to highlight a couple of elements that I think are key in your presentation. One is this element to think about ecosystem functioning and of course also ecosystem services, but based in this preservation of the function of ecosystems. The second thing I would like to highlight is the need to act differently. So the innovation in governance asks us to act differently, to incorporate all the changes on how we approach this managing of our landscapes. And probably it involves rethinking competencies and the institutional structures that allow for this innovation in governance to really be implemented in reality. I also like that you mentioned some difficulties, which are the timing and effort needed to do that, and the formats in which we really generate this knowledge to be incorporated in this managing of landscapes. And as I said just before, this rethinking of responsibilities on how we manage landscapes. I think this is something important to take into account. So thanks a lot, Annelies. I'm not sure if we do have Perez Sala on Zoom. We don't, so we can go directly to questions. Let's see, I did not have a look at the chat, so I'm not sure if there were already some questions. I don't think so. There are any ones here.
A specific chat box or just this chat?
The chat, I think they use in the chat. So I will ask all of you online, if you do have any questions for these two wonderful presentations, you can type them down. Otherwise, we can open the floor also for the questions or comments that you would have here in the audience that we have present here in Florence. Any question, any comment, any idea that this experience is brought? So, Jordi.
Yes, thanks a lot. Two very interesting presentations, I think. Massimo was explaining, I think, very much grassroots-based examples, I understood, like with the farmers, with the communities, and I think that more or less by themselves. CREAF has the big chance to have people like you who can provide support to this grassroots-based initiative. So like the Tordeira, Serpis, etc. They are with the community, but with experts behind. How is the relationship? How is the need of this collaboration of governance experts with grassroots communities? Does Massimo is following us? I don't know if he's online or not. But, if Massimo is here, does he think that there is a need for more procedure process?
Sì, sono collegato.
Okay, so that's my reflection question.
Thank you, Jordi. So we can give the word to Massimo first, and then to you, Annelies. Massimo, please.
Sì, diciamo che ecco, la cosa interessante è che almeno per quanto riguarda la Toscana c'è ancora un buon livello di cittadinanza attiva, no? Di coscienza civica, per cui è interessante vedere che in molti territori, nascono queste iniziative, no? Che cercano di dare un contributo pratico, no? Al tema anche della transizione, un po' anche il tema che è stato affrontato nella relazione successiva. Io credo che sui territori ci siano persone che sono in grado di operare un cambiamento. Il problema è come allargare ad altri, perché un po' anche la riflessione che ho fatto in fondo, cioè i colli di bottiglia. I colli di bottiglia stanno sempre nel capire come allargare le comunità che sono sensibili a certe tematiche e che sono portatrici di innovazione, di cambiamento proprio in direzione della sostenibilità. Molto spesso c'è diciamo, un elemento, cioè nel momento in cui la comunità si forma, al tempo stesso si chiude anche in se stessa. Invece dovremmo cercare probabilmente di fare in modo che la comunità sia inclusiva, ecco, da questo punto di vista. E questo non è sempre semplice. Sono partite molte iniziative, cioè almeno anche nella mia esperienza di ricerca, insomma, io ho lavorato abbastanza sui temi del rapporto tra agricoltura e consumi, sistemi locali. Ecco, molto spesso accade che queste, diciamo, iniziative finiscono o diciamo, vanno a perdere proprio perché non hanno avuto la capacità di coinvolgere altri soggetti. Ecco, io credo che l'aspetto centrale di queste iniziative sia capire come coinvolgere, allargare, sensibilizzare un maggior numero di cittadini.
Yeah, can I also answer the question?
Yeah, sure.
So relationship with stakeholders, and just as Massimo said, like how to get it more open. It's a challenge to get out of your comfort zone. We all have a comfort zone, and it's really a challenge to open that up. And I think that one of the key elements, unfortunately, is that many people are affected directly by what's happening. So unfortunately, often the only way to get people on board or to get this bottom-up claim, let's do something, and which opens up or creates communities, is the impact. That you really see that it's a no-go, we have to do something. I can't continue business as usual, which is unfortunate, but what I see. Without that, it's impossible. And scientific support, which was a difference with the other case, is that we really, at CREAV at least, we really do an effort to apply research and to provoke impact. We really like to try to see that what the knowledge produced is useful. And it's not easy to establish these collaborations because it's not always even like there are no protocols to easily, let's say, establish an agreement or a collaboration between scientific work and applied one. It has a totally different structure, format, and way of organizing the work. So it is an effort. So I think the basic ingredient is that you're interested, that you want to do it, that you do the effort, and that you get out of your comfort zone. And then I think there is a comment.
Okay, we have a comment here.
Grazie. Scusate. Allora, io mi chiamo Marco Cordone, sono un amministratore, sono un consigliere dell'ANCI nazionale e trovo interessante, scusate se mi limito al discorso toscano qui che ha fatto il dottor Rovai, ma penso che sia molto importante perché lei ha detto, Rovai, una cosa giusta, che poi queste comunità rischiano di, se non ho capito male, rinchiudersi in se stesse e alla fine diventa una questione di nicchia, no? Dei prodotti di nicchia legati anche al discorso dello slow food. Ecco, io troverei, proprio per allargare il tiro, proprio per incentivare gli interessi dei cittadini, la Toscana è terra di turismo anche intelligente, direi soprattutto intelligente. Io penserei sarebbe utile fare, ora magari non è proprio di competenza di questo convegno, io ho visto l'ANCI mi ha mandato un invito e allora mi sono iscritto e ho sentito delle cose interessanti, però secondo me, io non so, ma mi sembra che non l'abbia fatto, se la regione Toscana per esempio ha fatto un catasto di tutte queste comunità, tipo quella della Garfagnana. Ora io, il discorso della Garfagnana per me è abbastanza semplice da capire perché frequento la Versilia e quindi la Garfagnana è sopra la Versilia, perciò non mi ci vuole tanto, diciamo, a capire queste cose. Però secondo me se ci fosse, se si potesse dare la possibilità a tutti di conoscere tutte queste, diciamo, comunità, tutte queste comunità che poi alla fine producono delle cose di nicchia, sarebbe, diciamo, interessante. Io non so se qualcuno ci ha pensato a questo, però la conoscenza, diciamo, è legata anche alla pubblicizzazione di tutte queste cose, perché qualcuno diceva che la pubblicità, diciamo, è l'anima del commercio, no? Detto in senso lato. Allora io credo che se ci fosse un catasto, magari anche una carta, visto che di carte ne facciamo tante in Toscana, via Francigena, strada Romea e quant'altro, penso che sarebbe un discorso interessante. Ecco, spero che il mio invito venga raccolto da questo convegno. Grazie.
Okay, anybody, well, is it related to this? So later on, would Massimo or Annelies would like to comment on Marco's comments? Massimo?
Sì, sicuramente questo è un tema e ora direi che queste comunità in realtà sono mappate perché esistono diciamo, delle norme di legge sui distretti del cibo, sui distretti biologici e sono effettivamente elencate e sono state anche comunicate al Ministero. È chiaro che il passo successivo sarebbe quello di far conoscere, diciamo, queste comunità a un pubblico un po' più ampio e la Regione da questo punto di vista forse potrebbe attivare dei percorsi, no, di comunicazione adeguati. Dimenticavo che, ad esempio, un'altra realtà molto importante su cui la Toscana ha investito sono le cooperative di comunità, cioè le cooperative proprio per le zone montane, un po' riprendendo anche l'intervento iniziale che ha fatto la dottoressa Lauri di presentazione del progetto, cioè la Regione Toscana ha investito molto anche nel creare queste comunità, cooperative di comunità, proprio per andare incontro alle esigenze di rivalorizzazione e rivitalizzazione di alcuni tessuti delle aree montane. Anche questa mi sembra un'esperienza molto interessante da sottolineare. Queste comunità, diciamo, hanno il compito, no, di non solo di mantenere il territorio, ma anche di offrire servizi sociali alle comunità locali.
Okay, thank you, Massimo. We can go for another question here.
Thank you for very interesting contributions and perspective. I had a kind of general question. You were talking about the importance on focusing on functionality of ecosystems and this, interactions of ecological and social systems and collaboration with communities. And so I wanted to ask, maybe from perspective of our country, I guess we really experience a challenge in communicating this complexity of the issue, and particularly social, ecological systems, ecosystem functioning. It's already hard to communicate the ecosystem service concept as such, but this complexity of interactions and ecological systems, it's something above what usually our stakeholders and even policy makers are ready to perceive. So maybe what is your recipe of communicating this complexity and ensuring this interaction with communities, not only on some very basic benefits, but really on this functioning of ecosystem?
You're right, it's a huge challenge. It's absolutely not easy. For one side, to focus the pedagogical part. Sometimes it is revealed very useful to engage different researchers because society has like the vision that researchers have knowledge. So they listen to pedagogical transference of research. In the last Maresme meeting, there was really very much ears for the whole story on nature-based solutions. There was somebody who really had a presentation and people were, oh yeah, actually 50 years ago, this beach was bigger because of so it's because of the dunes. And then the big explication on that the beach you lay your towel on actually is a dynamic system of 250 meters of width. Okay, so there was like a nice transference, I think, on basic functions or functionalities that people were not aware of. And also demythification of some like very rooted beliefs, like that a river needs to be clean. So in Spain, we have this nice idea that a river should be like a highway of water without any vegetation, because that stops water. So it was funny when somebody started to explain, no, but this is explain everything, and people were really interested. And so they were opening an eyes on things. But I think it's because of the willingness of the people sitting in the room. Not everybody comes to the meeting. So there surely will be a big bunch of society who is not open to learning. So I think promotion of mutual learning is important, because then also somebody starts and says, yeah, but my field is next to the river. And actually I've been cleaning it thinking it would reduce my flood risk. So working on building a collective narrative in which you can put in different parts of the narrative on the risks and impacts, and you can put in some science-based information, especially when it comes from scientists, people are quite open. Then another part is that, we have drought, it helps. When it's very dry, then everything collapses in such a very quick way that people actually are quite aware of their dependency from nature. And 100 years of waterworks in Spain didn't actually reduce the risk to drought. And it's sometimes people, some lobbies don't like to admit it, but a lot of people are very aware that at a certain moment the well is dry. And so this is not ecosystem complexity, but it is the basic feeling that you actually depend on this thing working, even if I don't know it. I think these are two aspects that I think are leveraging the interest.
I can actually add a couple of things to that, because I've been quite involved in this research that Annelies presented too. And to me, there are also two things to consider. She said we needed to go out of our comfort zone, and that involves also researchers going out of our comfort zone. So we come from natural sciences, but many of the things that help us reach and be engaged with these other actors from the territory come from maybe natural sciences or participatory sciences. So we need to be open to methodologies that maybe are not so natural to us, but that help us really reach to these other actors and communicate in a proper way, so for that to be really understood. And the other thing that I think is also key is that we do have the scientific knowledge, but that's only part of the knowledge that is needed to face complexity. And we do have to acknowledge that other actors have other knowledges that are also important as ours. So we have to sit on the table with this understanding, I think, that we are there to learn from each other. And I think progress really is about that. So I think it's a nice environment to understand this part too. I think these are two elements that are also quite important. Okay, I wouldn't like to finish without mentioning a comment that was put on the chat. And we had Marianne Harris from Dublin, and she comments that the issues for local authorities in Anki's summary are very similar in Ireland. And there's a recent report on integration of climate action into local authority development planning. Therefore, projects across the EU that can address these issues will be very useful to focus on. So that's more a comment that complements all the other good comments that we had in this session. And I think it's time for another progress video that really captures in a wonderful, short and impactful way these good practices that you're sharing within your project. Thank you very much.
Ecosystem services are the goods and services that nature provides us at no direct cost. For example, pollination of our crops by wild insects is a vital service, which contributes millions of euro to the European economy every year. But not everyone is aware of this. And instead of protecting such services, we end up spoiling them by spraying our fields, hedgerows, parks and gardens with chemicals through land use change, and by failing to protect our native species and habitats. A framework which can raise awareness of the value of pollination services and ultimately protect our pollinators is the All-Island Pollinator Plan. Developed voluntarily by experts from multiple disciplines, the All-Island Pollinator Plan contains a comprehensive series of actions to protect our pollinating insects. These actions are mainly related to the protection and provision of safe places and food for pollinators all year round. The plan provides information resources including good practice guides for wide-ranging stakeholders, including farmers, municipalities, businesses, community groups, and there's even a junior all-island pollinator plan for children. The plan has been very successful, with hundreds of organisations, both public and private, now involved as partners. Furthermore, the plan has directly influenced the development of pollinator strategies across Europe. If you want to learn more about the All-Island Pollinator Plan and access all of its great resources for free, visit www.pollinators.ie. For other good practices for improved governance for ecosystem services, visit the Interreg Europe Progress website.